Morning, everyone. We're delighted to have all of you join us this morning. I can see we've got 60 participants already, and I know we're expecting even more to join us as the minutes tick forward this morning. I'm Sarah Curitan. I'm the executive director, actually, of the New Jersey Historical Commission. And I'm just delighted to welcome you here this morning. I'm going to introduce you as well to a member of the Historical Society team who's going to be helping guide this discussion this morning. That's Madeline Rosenberg. You'll hear from her in just a moment. But first, let me introduce my counterpart, Karen Berkowitz from the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, to give you her welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I am just delighted to be here with all of you this morning. We at the New Jersey Council for the Humanities are delighted to partner with the Historical Commission. I am, as Sarah said, I'm Karen Berkowitz. I'm the executive director at NJCH. We are the statewide partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities and work across the state of New Jersey, just like the Historical Commission. So we're very glad to be able to be here with all of you and to help you think through this challenging moment for all of us. I would also like to introduce a member of the Humanities Council's team. Gigi Naglak is our Director of Grants and Programs, and she will be working with Madeline to co-host and moderate this event today, and the two of them just did such an exceptional job in planning this. So Sarah and I know are both very grateful to them for doing such wonderful work. I think we'll go ahead and move forward and tell you a little bit about what's going on at our two organizations. As you know, we, like everybody else, are responding to COVID-19, thinking about how our communities have been impacted. At the Council for the Humanities, we've been very fortunate to have received CARES Act funding through Congress, which was appropriated to the National Endowment for the Humanities, and then NEH allocated that funding out to, some of that funding out to the state councils to award on a local level to organizations. NJCH received $649,600 to give out in the form of grants. All of that money has now been allocated, the awards have been made, and we made an announcement earlier this week. So I just would like to encourage everybody to visit our website, which is njhumanities.org. You will find there a list of all of our grant recipients, can be broken down geographically. You can see what's going on near you. We received exceptional applications from across the state, and it was both gratifying to see how strong and how robust our cultural infrastructure is, and at the same time, heartbreaking to see how much need there is. So we hope that this webinar is helpful to all of you alongside those grants, which we hope will help to serve the broader community. I would encourage you also to visit our website later this summer, because we will be making some additional programmatic announcements for the next year. Like all of you, we're waiting and watching things unfold and making some decisions about our fiscal year begins in the middle of the fall. So we're starting to think about the fall through the next calendar year. So keep your eye on our website for announcements about that. And with that, I'd love to ask Sarah to tell us a little bit more about what's going on at the Historical Commission these days.
Thank you so much. And welcome to those who have joined us in the last few moments. Welcome to the webinar. I wanted to start by saying that today's program is the second in a series of 3 webinars that we'll be presenting in partnership with the Humanities Council. And the topics here are really in response to some of the requests that you made in earlier town halls that the Historical Commission presented. So, you know, we welcome your ongoing input into what kind of resources you need and what kind of conversations you're looking for at this time, because we want to keep providing this platform to all of you to learn and to network and to respond together. So in terms of COVID, the Historical Commission has a couple of resources that are listed on your slide there. If you're not aware of them, I'm excited to share them with you. We do have a listing of current resources for COVID response that we have on our website, and we do update it regularly. So we really encourage you to keep checking back there, because we do add new resources. Early on in the pandemic, a lot of what we had was focused on closures and impacts on budgets, et cetera. That's still an issue, but now we've added many more resources on reopening and the considerations you need to be aware of as you think about that. So we encourage you to keep checking back to that. And then we also have been launching surveys of COVID impact on the history community in New Jersey, so we can document the impact, not, you know, for the future, certainly, as historians, our future the historians will look back on this period and be interested to see what happened, but also so that we can demonstrate to all just exactly what your needs and a situation might be. So please, right now we have our second impact survey out there. We strongly encourage all of you to respond to that, because by getting that data back from you, we can paint a better and more accurate picture of what your current status and needs are. So all that having been said, I want to add too that I didn't mention when I introduced Madeline that her title with us is Chief Public Historian. She fulfills a very important role for the Historical Commission. But I think what I need to do is hand off to Gigi to get us started on the program.
Oh, good morning. I've been seeing everybody coming in saying hello in the chat box. Thank you so much for being here. We're delighted to have you. I'm Gigi Naglek. I'm the Director of Grants and Programs at the New Jersey Council for the Humanities. It's been such a pleasure to work with Madeline and everyone at the New Jersey Historical Commission on this webinar, as well as the whole series. And we're delighted to have you here today. I want to very briefly go over our plan for what we're going to be doing today. So you've already gotten a little update from Sarah and Karin about what's going on both at the Historical Commission and the Humanities Council. And you know, I just again encourage you to keep an eye on our websites, our respective websites, and our social media, and so on and so forth, emails that we send out to know what's going on. Things are changing rapidly for all of you and for us as well. So new opportunities come up all the time. The main focus of today is, of course, a presentation from our two speakers on creating programs in a digital world. We're going to spend a good chunk of the time we have here today in Q&A and open discussion. So as you're working through, as you're listening to our speakers and thinking about your work, I encourage you to use actually the Q&A chat function. It actually says Q&A on it. And we'll be gathering your questions during and after the presentation for a moderated Q&A at the end. So don't hesitate to ask them throughout, but we will be taking questions at the end with both of our speakers. Madeline is going to wrap us up at the end of the day with a little talk about what's next and a view to the future, and we will wrap up by noon today. Madeline.
Thank you, Gigi. So I just want to echo everyone in saying that we're so happy to see all of you here today and very grateful for our tremendous speakers who are going to give great presentations in just a few minutes. Just to frame today's discussion, we wanted to list a few key questions that we're hoping you all can keep in mind as you listen to Izzy and Jace. Because we want this program, which is focusing on digital programs, to not only talk about what in terms of what do we mean by digital programs, but to talk about how and why. So just 3 questions for you to keep in mind. How can we create digital programs intentionally, effectively setting goals? So not starting with the end product, but starting with the goals of the project. What do you want to be taken away? What are the lessons learned? What are the objectives? 2, how can the planning process for digital programs be audience-centered? So who are you serving? What are their needs? Who are you, catering towards? Who are you not reaching? All of that sort of thinking is really helpful in designing programs. And I should note that these questions are useful for both digital and in-person programs. So they're important to keep in mind either way. And then 3rd, how can we create digital programs that are inclusive and responsive to the world around us? So thinking about different types of accessibility, which for those of you who attended the last webinar, we touched on in more detail. Who are you leaving out? Who are you drawing in? What are their different needs? What are their different perspectives? And then in terms of responsiveness, I think we all know that the world is rapidly changing around us, and that many of our audience members are looking for ways to tie the past to the present and to understand how current events can be better understood with context. So how can our programs, including our digital ones, speak to the present moment and the future? So those are just some thoughts to keep in mind as our presenters talk about their own work.
Wonderful. Thank you for getting us oriented, Madeline. We have 2 fantastic speakers for you today. Chase Jackson is the Program and Grants Manager, at the Bayshore Center at by Valve. Goodness gracious, I can't talk today. It's a good thing it's not all me. And then we're also joined by Izzy Kasdan, the Executive Director at the Historical Society of Princeton. So I'm going to now turn this over to Chase to get us started in the main part of our presentation today. Chase, take it away.
Thank you, and good morning to all. All right, I'm very excited about being with you this morning. And bear with me, I'm not a techie, so I'm going to be definitely getting all the help I can from Gigi. All right, next, Gigi. That's who we are. All right, Bayshore Center's mission. I just want to give you an idea of who we are. I hope a lot of you all have heard of us, but we're down in Port Norris in Cumberland County, and our mission is right there for you to see. Most people know us because of the A.J. MEERWALD, but we also have our own museum, Delaware Bay Museum, located right there in Port Norris, New Jersey, which we also, we're called by Val because it was a fishing village. So that's where we are. Next, oh, if you all read fast enough, next. Okay, the Delaware Bay Museum. These are a couple of our permanent exhibits. We currently have, we currently have 4 permanent exhibits and 1 changing gallery, with 2 exhibits annually that we bring in, and we usually create ourselves with other historical societies. We work with them as well. And we have lots of outdoor reader rails and lots of artifacts that aren't on display, as well as archival oral histories and artifacts that are stored away that people don't even know about. And we're a research center as well. But our biggest artifact next is the A.J. MEERWALD, New Jersey's tallest ship, which everybody seems to know about. And if you don't know about it, you should. We were all over the state. This year, obviously, we're not because of COVID-19, but that's been our biggest ambassador for the organization. And it's also a very educational, it's an educational program that we run on it as well as just public sales. But even our public sales are historic, teach about the history of the organization and history of the oyster industry and of the boat itself, and also about the environment. Next. Now, we're calling our program Ramp to New Normal because it's still a ladder. It's a ladder going up to, we don't even know where the new normal really is going to set. Everything is still in progress. Everything is a challenge. We're working up that ramp. Next. So I found this quote: you can call it the new normal, but everybody else, they also call it the now normal. And so we're in the throes of these consequential challenges, and we really have to think to look forward. And the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, and I never know if I'm saying his name correctly, but he had something, I'm paraphrasing it, all is change, only change is changeless. And so we're all moving with these changes. And just like the business and educational communities, a lot of them use what? Digital communications. And so that's where we're going to move to. Next. The goals of our Bayshore Centers of Digital Programming are here. And I'm going to just make sure the first thing to keep in mind is to always remain true to your mission. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're still in the planning stage, research and the planning stages of our digital programming, even though we have done some things already. We wanted to make sure we remain relevant to our patrons, because with so many organizations and businesses canceling their seasons and some even folding, we wanted to make sure our patrons and partners in the community know that we're still going to be around. We still want to remain vibrant and want to be dedicated to serving our community. So we want to make sure they knew that we are still in business. Now, small group, we're a small organization, we have a small staff, and as you can tell, I definitely am not from the tech, I'm not tech savvy, but we do have, fortunately, some crew members who are younger and brought up in technology, and so they help us a lot with our technological projects. And we also know that we may have to even hire new staff to help, as well as possibly even getting some outside consulting work, meaning contracted out programs, but we're going to work on that. We've done some research in that already. Let's see. And through, let's see, okay, increase our public access. And through the technology, there's so many things we have that even people that are on our boat, let's say when they go sailing with us, they get something about our organization and our history of the area in the Delaware Bay from the crew and our educational people on the boat. However, there's so much more they can now access because of the technology, and we can now market to them other programs that we have that they would normally not be able to attend, like our speaker series, which we'll hear about more. So that's going to be good, because we're reducing those barriers and making sure that we can reach out to many more people than we could have just before COVID-19. We also want to make sure we promote lifelong learning, and we'll be using our current programs to develop additional programming, but we also know we're going to expand upon that as well. But we want to maintain the quality, but maybe if possible, improve it and even enhance it with, a little bit more creativity than we would if you were there in person. So, because you're going to have to really capture the audience. So, and keep them captured to be able to enjoy as well as learn from whatever you're presenting. So you want to maintain and or improve and be creative with your programming. Next. Now, what we have been doing before COVID-19, we were lucky, like I said, to have crew members who really were taking video on the boat. Even I took videos on the boat with my iPhone during some of our cultural cruises that we had, and we posted them to Facebook, and we posted to our YouTube channel, which was set up by crew and our staff. So we have a YouTube channel already, and our Facebook always putting something on Facebook all the time, even before COVID. And we have oral histories that are up on our website, as well as in our iPads on our museum. So these are things we can always use even going forward. We've already created 2 informational films that we show in the museum, but we're adding a new one that, speaking of bringing things current, we have a new one that's in development right this minute that's called Traditions in Transition, and it's funded by the New Jersey State Council for the Humanities, the development of it, and it's called Traditions in Transition, Who's Shucking Now? Because we want to know who's shucking now, because the past, we knew who was shucking, and we have all that history on that, but we want to bring it forward and find out who's shucking now. So that's going to be added to our film library. Next. Now, our patrons and our partners in our community are varied. On the boat, it's statewide. Now, we know we can't go out to the statewide and do a lot of things. We can't even take the boat that we're out with the boat in July. Very limited. We don't know if we're hoping that we can keep the rest of this season going, but only in a select place. And right now it's going to be our home base in Port Norris. So, but if you can see from the graph, we are all over the state. Usually this time of year, we're like right now it's June, we would be in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. So we can't go there now, but we do reach those constituencies through the boat, but not through our programs in the museum or any of our other programs like that we have at our facility. However, in our Delaware Bay Museum, you'll notice that on the graph that the bulk of our communities served are from South Jersey. They're Cumberland, Gloucester, Salem, Camden, Cape May, and Ocean. We do have a lot from Pennsylvania, but that's because we're kind of close to Philadelphia area. But definitely, that's our home base is really South Jersey, and most of our museum patrons come from that area. And so we know we have those for audiences to actually physically be on our site, but now we have a way to even take them on the boat when you hear more about that. All right, am I going too fast? Because I am talking fast. Okay, nobody said no. Next. All right, now our shipboard education, I just want to point out that when we do our education sales, the students get to hoist the sails, and they also have scientific experiments with the water and water to see how the water quality is and what's in the water, and also things of, okay, thanks. Also things about the oysters. And so what we're going to do, we're looking at doing is I want you to imagine that they're in their classrooms now because they're not going to be coming out on the boat. We're sure they're not going to come out of the boat. And the crew is raising the sails live. And then in the classrooms, it's going to be live streamed so that the children can see what's happening, and it'll be narrated by someone on the boat, our ed coordinator on the boat. And actually the kids will even get to be understanding what's happening. They'll even get to sing heave and ho, all that together with the crew, as well as having an educator in the classrooms with them, one educator in the classroom with them, explaining things as well and doing Q&A afterwards. Okay. They'll all be in sync, of course, with the New Jersey core curriculum standards, but live streaming. Next. Next. Same thing with our museum programs. We have hundreds and thousands, we have over 3,000 kids that come through the museum a year in our programs. We have field trips that are out in our wetlands walks, and also coming into the museum for actual programs. We have two major programs with 600 kids over 2 days. 2 of them that way for 4th and 5th graders, free to them. So we know this year they won't be able to come. So we're going to do the same thing, live stream into the classroom and actually have some kits developed. We're researching what we're going to put in the kits, but send the kits to the schools ahead of time and actually live stream the programs to the children in the schools. And I'm halfway through. We're certain the schools aren't going to be able to have field trips, and we know they can't even have assemblies so far as we know at this point. So we're going to have to do classroom, and we may be able to live stream into more than one classroom at a time. We just don't know if we're going to have a person in each classroom during this live stream. Next. Now, we also have a speaker series, and in the speaker series, generally those are people from definitely our area in South Jersey, and we have 4 a year. Plus, we have second Fridays, which will be 9 speakers coming in every second Friday. So since we can't do that at this moment, we're talking about putting them on a video and actually posting them to our YouTube channel. And in some cases with the speaker series, when there's somebody like Dr. Esau Barnwell, who's in this photograph from formerly with Sweet Honey in the Rock, when we have someone of that caliber, we will probably look at how we can give that to the public, but have a nominal charge. And so we're researching how to do that. But that's going to be done. So just think, we could only seat 60 people in a setting like this, only 60. So if we're doing this and digitally, we can reach so many people, so many more people. So that's really exciting to us. And even those people who were on the boat who aren't able to come down to Bayshore Center. Okay, so we'll reach more people than we could if we were doing it this is almost a boom, when you think about it. Okay, all right, so next. All right. All right. Now, our population that we serve at the center, by the numbers, are low income, the majority, and we have lots of challenges because a lot of our constituency don't have home computers, especially the children. And there's even, in our area, there's even limited cell service and very poor, I mean, very poor in most of our areas that we serve. So that's another thing we had to take in consideration when we were planning, or we are planning our programs for digital programming, because we know everybody doesn't have a smartphone, even though I don't know if they even sell flip phones anymore, but I think they do. But everybody doesn't have a cell phone, and everybody doesn't have a smartphone or don't have computers at home. So next, here's again our ramp. We want to stay relevant. We want to provide access, and when I say access, there are various ways, and I'm going to talk about them, like with people who don't have the internet, who don't have smartphones. How are we going to reach them? We want to make sure we keep our mission focused. We want to make sure we rework and enhance our current program, and we're going to work with our partners and our schools to make sure that we find out how best to serve them. And I want to point out too, when I looked at everybody logging in, I saw the historical societies, and I said, oh, if we all are planning digital programs, just think we can all share those digital programs with each other, and people can learn about your places and learn about ours as well. So that's kind of cool. All right, next. And I'm probably really going really fast. This is what we're ramping up now. We already talked about what we already have with Facebook, and we're going to be doing Zoom and Vimeo, and we're going to do some of these programs I already talked about that way, live streaming the programs and events. We're going to do videos and load them up to our website, place them on our YouTube channel, and even some will be, shorter ones will be on Facebook. And then our audio programs, this is the exciting part that came to us. We're going to do podcasts. We don't know if we're going to do an app or not, because there's some reason we might not, but we're definitely going to put the podcast on the website, but we may have app as well. But then there's also radio. And we think, well, who in the world listens to radio anymore? But people do listen to the radio. So we like to use our podcast or whatever our audio programs. Some of them we want to put up on the radio, and it's all about marketing that now to all the people, so people know that these things are happening. We can also use radio, which is digital, and actually market our programming as well. And I'm probably, how am I on time? Am I good on time there? Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Next. All right. So this is another program that we have that's really exciting one that people love every year. This would have been our 4th year doing this program, and it's Oyster and Wine Tasting and Pairing. But before I talk about this one, I just want to point out some of our programs that we will be doing under the other page that we had, other slide we had. We're going to have our videos, our Sailors in Science, which is the captain and crew talking about scientific things on the boat and scientific things in the environment, as well as things on the boat. And Curators' Curiosities, where the museum curator will share select artifacts not normally on display. And also edited versions of our cultural cruises from the past, which featured various culturally diverse history presentations and performances. And then I already talked about our speaker series. Now this one is usually it only seats 40 people, because again, we have a very limited space, but it's packed. I mean, I really have to squeeze people in on this one, and people come every year and fight for seats. And what it is, we have usually 6 oyster varieties, farmed and wild caught, from the Chesapeake Bay, Delaware Bay, of course the Delaware Bay, and the Raritan Bay. And we also have 2 wineries usually, and I get them to tell us what's best wine to go with the different tastes of the different, because all the oysters taste differently, all of them. So it's really exciting. They love it. And we also have a pairing with it as well as with the food. We actually have oyster dishes, little tapas plates rather. And we're going to do that live streaming as well. So that's an example of one that we will charge for. And what we're trying to do is, knowing that we can only seat 40, now we can probably we want to do about 4 of these and have it open to, as many people as want to attend online, and they'll be live. just like I heard people doing cocktail parties or, you know, on Zoom. So we're going to work with the oyster farms and work with the wineries and actually put out a list for them to, for the people to purchase ahead of time. And then, great. And then the patrons will sign to participate at home for their live tasting and pairing. And we'll do that with the chefs and everybody aboard at our place. And we'll send them a commemorative oyster shucking knife and a wine stopper with their ticket. And so it's really, really great to be able, there's always a scientific aspect to this and a presentation. So the wineries will talk, and so will the oyster industry. People will also give the status, an update on what's happening in New Jersey's oyster industry and wine industries. All right, next. We're real excited about that. All right, ramp up. That's a term that's always used and in the business world, and it's all about increasing an organization's production ahead of anticipated increases in product demand. Let's all hope that's where we're headed. I hope so, and I hope everybody has a great season, even though it's challenging, but it's exciting as well. So let's just be creative as we can be and push forward and stay on mission. Next. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Chase. That was wonderful. We really appreciate it, and I think we're excited to dig into it in the Q&A. So now I'm going to turn it over to Izzy Kasdan, the Executive Director for the Historical Society of Princeton. So thank you, Izzy.
Thanks, Madeline. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm delighted to be here along with Chase, and I hope some of this information will be helpful to you. So again, I'm Izzy Kasdan. I'm the Executive Director of the Historical Society of Princeton. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, great. The Historical Society of Princeton is a museum, archive, and public programming organization headquartered at Updike Farmstead in Princeton, New Jersey. I always think it's helpful to get a sense of the size of the staff that we have. So when you hear what we're doing, you know our staff is about 5.5 full-time equivalent people. And also on that topic, I just want to say that I'm here sharing what we've done and our lessons learned, but I'm just passing on a lot of the hard work that has been done on the part of my really awesome team, and they deserve the credit. And I know some of them are on the call, so I want to say thank you to them for diving into all of this with me. Next slide, please. So speaking of COVID-19, we closed our museum and indefinitely canceled all of our in-person programs on March 14th. Next slide. And then on March 14th, we started to build up our digital program. We started with this History at Home page on our website, which you see on the screen. And that aggregates what we call our anytime digital content resources, so things that you can access whenever you want. Next slide. And zooming in on that bullet pointed list, the History at Home page includes links and information about our crowdsourced COVID-19 collecting initiatives, information about our social media content and channels, links to recorded virtual events, virtual walking tours, digital exhibitions, digital collections access, transcription initiatives for those who have time on their hands, local and New Jersey history related videos, remote learning activities that we put together, and puzzles using historic images from our collection. Some of this content is proprietary, we created it, and some of it was built by other affinity institutions, and we're just sharing it on this page. And also some of this content, or most of it really, already lives in other places on our website, but aggregating it on one page like this allows us to use a single link on all of our social media channels, to link to it in a pop-up window when you land on our website, and to link to it directly in all of our email communications. So it was really important to us to pull it all together in one place. Next slide. So during closure, we got more strategic and aggressive about daily social media posts. We've been treating our social media channels almost as a microblog or a micro history publication every day, sharing a small historical narrative and materials from our collection. By posting daily and by carefully curating the content, our social media reach has grown by 250% in the last 3 months. And I'm sure you've also seen statistics about how people in general are just spending a lot more time on social media right now. So we're meeting people where they are. And to make this more manageable for our staff, we developed themed days, 3 days a week, to help guide our approach. So it wasn't like every day we were racking our brains for something to do. And this post is from one of our Women's History Wednesdays. Next slide, please. The May-June timeframe is also when we do the vast majority of our school field trips in normal times. And this would include classroom outreach programs into schools, as well as historic walking tours in town, and sometimes field trips to our historic site. And we wanted to ensure that all of this was still possible despite the closure of schools. So we developed 10 packaged videos for 10 historic sites in Princeton, which we provided to all 3rd grade teachers in our district. For each video, we also provided them with a checking for understanding question and a response activity, like an art activity, a journal response, or analyzing a primary source. Next slide, please. And in April every year, we always offer a Lego architecture event where families come and build Lego models of historic Princeton buildings, learning about their history. And then at the end, they place them on this 600 square foot map to create a little model historic tour of the town, which you see in that bottom image there. It's a really beloved program. So this year we did an at-home version where registrants were assigned a building and were given images and stories about the building. Next slide, please. And then they had 1 week at home to build their model. Then they sent us photos and we put the photos on a customized Google map so people could explore the models, the places and their history. And if this were a live link, you could click on that image and see bigger images of all of the models that were built. Then we added this to our digital tour section on our History at Home page because it occurred to us we had just built another digital tour. Next slide, please. We've also dabbled in live virtual public programs. We did a recorded oral history interview to plug our COVID-19 collecting. We offered an open archive program on the theme of healthcare in Princeton. We delivered our spring historical fiction book group session via Google Meet. We did a virtual Albert Einstein Lunch and Learn program for families. And tonight, we'll be offering a lecture about baseball history, and you can check that out on our website if you're interested. Many of these have also been in conjunction with our local public library, which I'll talk about a little later. Next slide, please. So that was just a quick rundown of the what of our digital programs, but as Madeline said earlier, the crux of the issue is the why and the how. So we wanted to pivot our beloved longstanding events to a virtual format, keep our audiences engaged in history, provide virtual human interaction for those who are isolated, respond to and reflect upon current events that connect to history, and ensure our programs are inclusive and accessible. And this is not on the slide, but we're also hoping to replace some of our lost program service revenue with digital programs. Next slide, please. So we certainly have not cracked the digital programming nut. We've just been trying a lot of things and are very pleased to share what we've learned so far. So here are 10 lessons learned in 10 minutes, and let's see if I can keep to time. Next slide. So number 1, know your audience and help them know you. The nature of virtual programs makes it more challenging to know who your audience is and respond to their needs. In a live program, you would look out on the crowd and see the audience in front of you, and you might pivot the content based on the ages you see and body language, etc. You can't do that in a webinar format. You often don't even see the people that are participating. For example, when we did our Einstein Lunch and Learn for families, we did not fully realize until the Q&A section that about 90% of the audience were adults with no children with them, and the content was very elementary school focused. In a live program, we would have been able to see that and adjust, but we couldn't do that in this format. So our takeaway was that we have to do a much better job of explaining who the intended audience of a particular program is when it's in this digital format. The kind of classic all audiences will enjoy this content is not necessarily specific enough, and we have to do a better job of targeted marketing to our intended audiences. You can also make use of the poll feature in webinars to try and understand at the beginning of a program who is out there in the audience so that you can adjust if you have to. Next slide. Number 2, adjust your existing in-person programs while you virtualize. So several of our digital programs, as I mentioned, were translations of programs we already offered in person, but the operative word is translation. You do have to make modifications to the virtual format. So for example, for our Lego program, we allowed all building materials, not just Legos, to make it accessible, especially since we were not providing the Legos as we would have in person. For our historical fiction book group program, which we do 4 times a year, we shorten the session to under an hour rather than 90 minutes, recognizing that people's digital attention spans are shorter. And it's a lot harder to get a discussion going in a virtual format. I'm sure you've noticed that in some of the meetings you've been in. It's, especially if you don't know other people there, it's really hard to jump in. For our school field trips, we talked to teachers and got feedback about their preferred method of consuming information. And they told us that several short videos would be best and that it's really hard for them in the remote learning setting to carve out, a full hour of time for a live virtual visit. So we chose to make 10 videos so they could do 1 or 2 per day and be finished within 2 weeks. And so what was ordinarily a continuous narrative over the course of an hour or so became separate packaged narratives. And in selecting the sites, we had to eliminate several that would have ordinarily been on our walking tour. So something that we kept in mind when we did that was making sure that the sites that we did select told as diverse a narrative as possible. This format also allowed us to beta test, including some new sites we had intended to add to the route of our school tour, like the building of the former segregated elementary school for African American students in Princeton, which is physically a little further afield for walking. Next slide. Number 3, be aware of new safety and legal considerations. This is especially important when you are recording a program and will post it on your website or social media later. If the faces and voices of participants are included, you should get their permission, just like you would with a photo release for an in-person program. Be very careful if the faces and voices of children are being recorded. There are all sorts of rules about engaging children and marketing directly to children on the internet in general. So we have been very careful to market to parents, families, and schools and not directly to children. And this is legally defined as under the age of 13, I believe. And these laws include the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, as well as the Families Educational Rights and Privacy Act. It's called COPA and FERPA. So also keep in mind copyright when posting a recorded event with copyrighted visuals to your website. The copyright holder might consider posting that event to be publishing, in which case there might be a fee to use the visuals. So credit all of your images that you use in your programs and remind your speakers to do the same. Next slide. Number 4, creatively inventory your existing digital assets. And I put digital in quotation marks because something that maybe hasn't been digital in the past might be digital if you think about it a different way. And what's really important is not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. You might be looking around the internet and seeing lots of digital exhibitions and digital tours that are really fancy looking, and remove that pressure. You don't have to get bogged down in that. Once we did that, we realized that we already had a lot more material than that we could give digital access to than we originally thought. So, for example, our digital exhibitions on our website are PDFs of past panel exhibitions we had done at the Princeton Public Library, nothing fancy. On the screen, you see that we put those PDFs in a flippable virtual publication online and called it a digital exhibition. For digital tours, we do have slightly fancier themed digital tours about African American history and 18th century history, but we have always had a page on our website that just lists historic sites with images and short blurbs. So we considered that a digital tour too and put that on our History at Home page under digital tours. Also related to this is once you create digital content, think about how you can repurpose it to share it with other audiences. We created a video about Morven as a historic site for our virtual field trip program. and are now giving access to that for the recipients of Morven Museum and Gardens 4th of July take-home bag. And I saw Debbie on the call, and so we're grateful to be able to offer that video again in a different context. Next slide. Number 5, protect your intellectual property. The internet is a place where things can become easily downloadable, where people can take something you create and use it without your knowledge. For us, it was really important to think about how we would protect our programs and not undermine our ability to offer them again in person or in a different format. For instance, for digital versions of our in-person events, like our weekly Sunday walking tour, we are thinking about how if someone purchases a ticket to participate digitally in that event, the access to the content would expire after a certain amount of time. So if they want to do it again next year, they might be more likely to come on an in-person experience. Similarly, for our school field trip videos, we password protected the videos so that they could not be shared widely beyond the school. And we disabled downloading. And then at the end of the school year, we were going to take them down. So for digital exhibitions, rather than putting a PDF directly on our website, we published it using the digital platform Issuu, ISSUU, so that people would not be able to print and download those PDFs without our permission or knowledge. It sounds a little mercenary, but you want to make sure that you're not cannibalizing your own future efforts by making something freely accessible and downloadable now. Next slide. So this relates to number 6, give yourself permission to charge for your virtual programs. At the start of this period of closure, we were all throwing a lot of content online that maybe we would ordinarily charge admission or a ticket price for. We were putting it there for free because we weren't sure how people would respond to this format, and maybe we were not confident in the quality. But a nonprofit is business. And if you charge a nominal fee for some of your programs in person, it's okay to do that digitally too. We've had success with the pay what you can model, which you see on the screen. This makes people feel like they are supporting us if they can, but also preserves access for those who cannot afford it. Next slide. Number 7, don't forget about collaboration, even in isolation. In real life, we're highly collaborative, working with a number of partner cultural and humanities institutions locally to present programs. And we've kept that up with our digital programs. That's really helped us collectively move the needle on this. We've worked with the Princeton Public Library to present many of our live virtual programs. And we ordinarily offer a free public walking tour of a historic estate turned park and arboretum in Princeton in collaboration with the Parks Foundation. That foundation put together a Google Earth tour of the arboretum, which we're now sharing on our website, which you can see on the screen. So think about who your potential partners could be. You definitely do not have to go it alone with this. Next slide. Number 8, prepare for and frankly anticipate technical difficulties. This format is new to a lot of people. You should have an internal plan about what to do when patrons experience technical difficulties. I recommend always having someone as a co-host of the program who is doing nothing but responding to technical concerns and can access all of the administrative controls on whatever platform you're using. It's really hard to be speaking and leading the program and also responding to technical issues at the same time. Related to that, designate ahead of time how people should communicate technical difficulties during the program. Is it to an email address? Is it in the chat box? Make sure that you share that information widely with participants several times. People have a tendency to reply directly to the confirmation email that they receive, so make sure that the confirmation email is coming from an email address whose inbox will be actively checked for the duration of the program. Always do a test run with your speakers ahead of time to identify any potential technical issues before the day of the event. And at the end of the day, troubleshoot as best as you can if people are having issues, but also cut yourself some slack. People are going to have difficulties, and sometimes all you can do is apologize. Next slide. Number 9, understand people's expectations for virtual experiences. We've surveyed our audiences and constituents to try and understand what their expectations and preferences are for digital programs, which includes the time of day, the length, the platform they want to use, the content. And we've found that people have strong reactions to platform choice if it's unfamiliar to them, even if you think it functions very similarly to Zoom or a more familiar platform. People will react if they've never heard of it before. So be patient with that. People expect and want things to be recorded, especially if they can't attend at the appointed time. So be as clear as possible if something is not going to be recorded from the get-go and explain why. In our case, a lot of our Einstein-related programs are not recorded because of copyrighted content. And so we need to make that very clear to people from the get-go. And finally, ask for feedback after programs. Don't be afraid to hear criticism. This is how we learned that during a program that was centered around collections materials, people could not see the collection scans because they were too blurry because of some internet connection issue. And that was really critical information to know. Next slide. And number 10, I just wanted to outline some very simple, mostly free digital tools that we have used to deliver our programs recently. So Zoom, you might think of as just a meeting platform, but we used it to create our field trip video documentaries. So we created a PowerPoint presentation with lots of animations and fades between slides. And then we did a solo Zoom meeting while sharing the screen of the PowerPoint and speaking into the computer for the quote unquote voiceover. We recorded that solo Zoom meeting and then Zoom spit out a video, and that was our little Ken Burns documentary. So you don't have to know or have video editing software to make videos. I love Canva. My staff is probably laughing right now because I'm so obsessed with Canva, but it's a free cloud-based graphic design tool. And as a nonprofit, you can apply for free access to the pro version, which means you can create logos with transparent backgrounds and access a lot of great clip art and stock images. We used Issue to publish PDFs of our exhibitions on our website and make sure that they couldn't be downloaded or printed. We used Vimeo for the password protected videos. We used Google My Maps, which is different from Google Maps, Google My Maps. And that's how you can create custom maps with a certain set of pins for a little mini digital tour. That's what we used for our Lego tour. And for the puzzles on our website, we used a site called Jigsaw Planet to create custom puzzles of our historic photos. If you want more details about those tools, I'm happy to answer questions about that in the Q&A, or you can shoot us an email. Some of my staff members might have more information than I have about that as well. So next slide. So we're still trial and erroring as we go, but my advice is be brave and dive in. There will definitely be mistakes and unexpected things will come up, but you'll learn from them, I hope, and good luck. Thank you so much for having me again. On the screen there is my contact information as well as the contact information for our director of programs and our curator who have been involved in this content as well. And so you can feel free to reach out to us if you want any further information about what we've discussed today. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you also to Chase for your presentation. I'm actually going to ask both of our excuse me, presenters to come back on screen, if you don't mind. Hi, Chase. Great to see your face. So just a reminder to everyone out there in the audience, we can't see you, alas, but we know you're there. And please use the question and answer box to ask questions of our Q&A. We've got a few of them already lined up. So I'm going to be moderating this Q&A, and I assure you we'll get to as many of these questions as we possibly can during this time. So first thing I want to really quickly ask both Chase and Izzy, is there anything that you suddenly realized you meant to say during your presentation, but you didn't get to it, and you want to jump in right now and bring it back? Anything coming immediately to mind?
Not right now. I think there was, but I can't remember what it is. So I'll look around and see what my notes say.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
It will.
Or it'll come up in our questions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Izzy, you good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So first thing, just a couple of technical notes. We are recording this program, and we will be sharing this both through the New Jersey Council for the Humanities and the Historical Commission. So if you need to go back to anything, you will be able to do that. There was a question also about sharing the slides, and frankly, the answer to that question right at this moment is, I don't know. But we will get back to you about that. And if we can, if we have permission to share the slides, we will. So getting back into our questions for our speakers right now. There was a question from one of the audience members about making your programs accessible to people with hearing or visual impairments. Have you thought about this? Do you use card captioning service, sign language interpreters? How do you pay for these services? Have you given any thought to this or started doing any experimentation with this? If either of you have an answer, that would be great.
Izzy?
So we've definitely thought about it for some of the platforms where it's been easier for us to roll out quickly. So when we've been posting videos to social media, we've made sure to caption those, and we've found some services that allowed us to do that for free. Like Facebook will pull, Facebook has an automated service that you can then edit, and it's actually pretty good and easy to use. And so we've done that for our videos. When we post, we've been posting oral history quotes on social media recently. We've been doing a campaign on social media amplifying stories of racism and also racial justice activism in Princeton. And so we've been sharing oral history quotes in an image, but then we also always make sure to put the text of the quote that's from the image in the actual post so that a screen reader can read it. So when we've been thinking about social media and all of that, that's been I guess the first pass for us on the accessibility front. As far as live programs are concerned, that's definitely a concern that we have and something that we want to figure out how to do, but it's not something that we've tested out yet as far as live captioning or sign language interpretation.
Now, I have not done any of that for Bayshore Center, even though I am familiar with the live interpreters. So I would definitely put that on our list of things to look into all across the board. So very good point. Thank you for the question.
Certainly. I know we have done some experimentation with using the features that exist on webinar platforms to close caption. And generally speaking, we found them to be pretty good, to be perfectly honest. So that is one option that is fairly accessible quickly to organizations. If anyone out there, by the way, has an example of how you have handled these questions around accessibility, particularly for people who have visual or hearing impairments, that would be great. Please chat us a little notion and I will share it. Chat us your story and I will share it. Absolutely. Chase, there was a question for you specifically. What do you send out to your schools and young audiences for these pre-online visits that you mentioned, the kits that you mentioned?
Sure. Now, remember, we're still in the development stages, but however, when we have the kids in our museum, we have kits like bird building kits, watershed models. So we're talking about putting little kits together, smaller kits together that will go out to the classrooms, and as well as study guides and or surveys after the fact. So the surveys will be digital, of course, but the study guides will always be paper. So we are talking about putting kits together in our different projects that we normally would be doing at the site. We'll put little kits together for them to send to the schools ahead of time. Well, in time for the program, and some things ahead of time.
Great. Another comment came up. Izzy, you mentioned My Maps, Google Maps. I'm sorry, I probably just got that name wrong, didn't I?
Google My Maps.
Google My Map, thank you. Good Lord. Another person mentioned Story Map, which is a free tool developed by Night Lab at Northwestern University. Might be another map option for you. It's storymap.nightlab.com. And I should mention also, Madeline's going to tell you all a little more about this, but we are working on putting together sort of a one-pager. It's actually, I think, going to be 2 pagers with relevant information from like tools and some of the main ideas expressed in this that will be circulating afterwards. So this is not your very last opportunity to write down these resources. We will share them with you as well, though certainly it will not be a comprehensive list by any means. Yes. Okay. A question I think I would love to hear both of you answer, since you have both been beginners in this. Do you have a particular, I'm sorry, hang on just one second. As a beginner, when you're just sort of starting out in this world of digital programming, what do you recommend starting out with, like trying first, if you're going to go one way, or perhaps if that's not helpful, what have you found to be your low learning curve opportunities?
Well, I can say for us, it was Facebook and taking your iPhone out wherever you are and you're programming and take some shots, take some video, and we just upload the video straight up to, well, we upload photographs as well. We continually upload photographs, but to our Facebook page, we get a lot of feedback from our people in the community, whoever, our Facebook friends, but that's our easiest and it's the cheapest, of course.
Excuse me, before you answer, Izzy, Chase, you mentioned, I remember in our conversations when we were planning this webinar, that you had a lot of engagement already on your Facebook page.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why you went there. Is that right?
Correct. Definitely. Yeah, our Facebook page, we have two. We have Bayshore Center and AJ MEERWALD. And so they both, we just put, when we put it up on one, this goes up on both. But and these we make short, you know, I thought we were just doing like under 8 minutes, but some of them are a little longer because our crew members get a little carried away. But you know, they're very short videos, and even when I upload the cultural cruises, I just kept them under 2 minutes, just so people get a feel for what they could be experiencing when they were on the boat. Yeah,
absolutely. Izzy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chase. I think social media is a really great platform because, you know, it's easy to create content and post something. And as I said in the presentation, it's also where a lot of people are hanging out right now. Yeah. There's just a lot of people sitting around scrolling through Facebook because we're all, you know, stuck at home. And so that's a really great place to get in front of people. Our Facebook engagement has grown dramatically. I think in the past few months have had 100, you know, our reach has been close to 100,000 people, which is more than we could have ever hoped for. And we feel great about it because we've also been really thoughtful about what we've been posting and feel like the content has been strong and what people are reading is something that we're proud of. So I would start with social media too. The other thing that we started at, like the first thing we did was that History at Home page, and we just started with thinking about what was already on our website. So I would highly recommend, I can't remember what lesson learned number it was, but just sit down and think creatively about what you already have. Don't feel the pressure to create all sorts of new content. I guarantee you have more digital content than you think, even if it's just sitting in a Word document on your computer. That could be a piece of digital content if you just think about it in the right way. So I would also recommend just creating that page on your website to throw all of your digital content in, and you'd be surprised how much you might have.
Have you found that live presentations, so when you're actually doing it live, are more well received than the pre-produced or pre-recorded? Have you found that it works particularly well for one type of event or the other? Do you like the mix? How are you dealing with pre-recorded things versus live?
I can take that first just because we have some, we did that. I mentioned we did a survey of our constituents, and one of the questions we asked was around preferences for live versus recorded programs. And I personally was actually really surprised by the fact that like 70% of people said that they preferred recorded programs. And I don't know if they interpreted that as you can do it live, but make sure it's recorded so I can watch it later, or just throw up the recording. For me, I feel like there's the risk when you record something and there isn't that timestamp on it, like come join us at 7 p.m. for this program. Someone might intend to watch it, but then maybe never get around to it. And so for me, I feel like it's important to do the live and the recorded. So you grab those people. We talk about this, but we've been thinking about our museum of scheduling gallery talks, because if you say, hey, you can just come to our museum anytime, Wednesday through Sunday, like whenever works for you, I think it's harder for people to just sort of bite the bullet and come. So I'm a big believer in schedule the time, have it in people's calendars, and then they'll actually commit to participating. But it seems like people really, really want things to be recorded so that they can access them later. I think we've all experienced that our lives are crazier than we think right now. Things come up, you know, all of our families are at home. And so I think people appreciate when something is recorded, and our survey results definitely indicated that. And I think we've had about equal numbers of people watching something live and then watching it after the fact when we look at the data.
And I think what we're thinking of planning is that we would do various programs live, but they were very limited number and targeted, more targeted than ours that are going to be just recorded, and but definitely more recorded than live.
Have either of you thought about how you begin to measure impact of these programs? And I think I'd be interested in hearing your answers, both in terms of, you know, how do you actually measure the numbers of people attending, and then for different types of events that you have, and then measuring impact evaluation in that respect.
Well, I think one way we can measure it is just to see if you're doing it up on, they have to sign in, you can tell how many participate, of course. So you have to think of that as you're building and developing that program. So you can tell how many sign up. And I haven't gotten into the technology side of things to see if there's a way to see how many people actually log on. But I know there is, I know that most programs do have that capabilities to see how many people have, how many have actually clicked all the way through and actually viewed it. I know that that's possible. So I don't know which programs per se to talk about right now, but I know that's one way to find out. And also, you can also just ask your public, you know, let us know what you, again, doing a survey or just put it out there to them. What did you see this month? You know, what did you check on this month? And engage them in that way to just have a conversation on your social media page, even to say, did you see this so-and-so? I'd like to know how many people, you know, and just kind of like engage them in that way casually to just kind of check and see who responds as well. That's kind of one way to do it, but I'm sure there's better ways. See?
So at the very basic level, we've been measuring how many people participate in our programs, and most, as Chase said, most digital platforms, all the ones that we've been using, you can see like number of views. The Google map that we created for the Lego thing, we can see number of views. All of our Vimeo videos for the virtual field trip, we can see number of views. Now, sometimes that's misleading. I think the challenging thing that I haven't really cracked yet is, at least for the live virtual programs we've been doing on Zoom, like in the participants bar at the bottom, I can see the number of people that are participating right now. What I don't know in a webinar format is, are there 3 people sitting in front of a computer? Or are there 2 people sitting in front of a computer? So it occurred to me that maybe in a poll, we should ask, like, how many people are in front of your screen right now? Because then we can use those percentages and do a little math and figure out exactly how many people participated in the program. So it's a little bit more complicated than a live lecture where we could just look out at the room and count the number of people. My staff member, Eve, has this really beautiful spreadsheet that we put together every month that has like 25 categories of different things that we track as far as visitor numbers and engagement. And we sat down in like the April timeframe and we added a lot of categories to that, because we realized that there are new things that we're doing that we need to keep track of. And that's a helpful reminder, I think, to us of every month. We just know that we fill that out and we look for the numbers. You want to grab those numbers as soon as you possibly can, because it's hard to go back. Like if you look at your YouTube video views now, you won't know how many views that there were from April to May, or you can't really segment it out like that. So we do that on a regular basis so that we can track numbers over time. And as I said, we've been asking for feedback. So, and we mean it. I mean, I think a lot of times people are like, let us know what you think. And they don't really necessarily maybe follow up on that. And when we did our open archive program at the library, our really fantastic partner at the library, like emailed all of the participants afterward and asked them again, you know, email me back with your feedback. And that's how we got some really good kind of qualitative information about how it was going.
Cool.
So you have to ask people a lot of times. Like if you
Oh,
just
yeah.
say it once at the end of a program, they're probably not going to get around to it. But if you kind of bother them for that feedback, they might tell you.
Yep.
I was gonna say you're nodding along with that, Chase. Got to
Yeah.
ask lots of times.
Yeah, you do. You do. And we also have a spreadsheet with all the keeping up with the numbers on a weekly basis of who attends and participates. But I don't have how they're doing digitally. So I've got to put that on my spreadsheet now. But thank you, Izzy, for that reminder.
That's great. So have you, either of you or both of you, given any consideration when you are doing live programming about time of day, or found that particular times or days of the week go particularly well? Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, I know that what we're planning, again, still planning because we haven't done any of this except for our Facebook and YouTube. We already have the programs, like our speaker series is always on a certain day of the week, certain time of day, as well as our second Fridays. They're always the same time. So right now, I would think that we would keep that schedule because those people who were attending before will know it's second Friday. So let's log on and see who's presenting this week, and the same thing with our speaker series. We will announce it because we have it always usually the same week of the month and the same time. Now, it may change because everything is changing, but we will test it out that way, as well as with the schools. We're going to be working with the schools and our other partners, our libraries, our historical societies, and our church. I didn't mention churches. We also do things with churches. Forgot about those partners. And we will work with their schedules and how best to serve them.
Got it. Izzy, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the live, just sort of general public programs, we did in our survey to our constituents ask about what time was preferable because generally speaking, back in the day, a lifetime ago in January, we would have done, I mean, most of our lecture programs would have been on like weekday evenings, or we would have done gallery talks on weekend afternoons. And that was generally like the times of day we would use, but we weren't sure if that was still convenient for people. So statistically, it seemed like late afternoon and evening on weekdays was preferable for people. Only about 35% of people said that they liked weekends. So weekdays seem better still, and that's kind of what we've been going with. Our family program that we did on a Sunday lunchtime slot, and we did get traction there. So we're kind of still experimenting, but I think, again, I can't emphasize enough, like, just don't be afraid to ask. There's no messing up here. No one assumes that you know what you're doing. None of us know what we're doing. This is a whole new world. And, with the school programs, my colleague just called up a teacher that she works with very closely at one of our public schools and sat on the phone with her for a while and just asked her, if we were to do a virtual field trip, what would work for you? So make sure you're not creating something that hasn't been informed by the audience that you're trying to serve, because we might have just said, we're going to develop an hour-long, live program that we're going to broadcast into all of your students' homes. And we were told, in the first minute of that conversation, that was not going to be a convenient or possible thing. And so I'm really glad we had that conversation, because then we were able to create something that would actually be used.
Yeah. And we will be working with the school systems on our schools with that.
It'll be interesting to see. I know schools are experimenting, are thinking about if they're even going to be able to have full classes. If they open at all, will they have full classes, or will they be combining online instruction and in-person instruction, and sort of combining online instruction, in-person instruction, and other online, opportunities? Adds a whole level of challenge that we'll all be dealing with in September, if not before. I'm going to throw this out to you first, Chase, although Izzy, I'm sure you've got thoughts about this as well. But you mentioned, Chase, that you have real active engagement on social media. So do you find that your sort of likes on social media, your Facebook likes, are turning into actual engagement? Do you recognize the people that are engaging with your social media? Can you talk a little bit about changing likes into engagement?
Well, a lot of I recognize a lot of the people on on Facebook, especially because that's what I look at the most. I'm not the one that keeps up with all that, but I do look at Facebook all the time. And I recognize a lot of the people, and a lot of them are people who are come to the center. Some are a lot of people who, when they go on the boat, they stay friendly with Facebook because they want to see what's happening with the boat, what's happening with the crew, because they meet the crew, and so they're always on looking at people and talking back and forth, you know, giving us feedback on when are we coming to your area, our area again, and all that. So I find that the people who find us on Facebook are people who have had some engagement with us already, and then there are people who just happen upon us, and then they tend to stay engaged. Or when are you coming to this area? When are you going to come to this area? And so we do always get back to people when if they ask a question, if they say anything, or even our comments. I will say our executive director, if there's a comment, somebody commented and said something, you know, wow, I love that picture of that boat. Usually he peeps at Facebook a lot too, and he will say something back to that potential patron and say, oh, we might not be in your area, but the closest port we're going to be is blah blah blah, or come see us, you know, or give us a call, you know. So we always try to also get back to the people that say stuff to us, or the likes or something. Direct, yeah.
Direct
Yeah.
contact.
Yeah, it's like we had someone in the office. We're all laid off, by the way. We're laid off. We're not back at work yet. So that's another reason why we haven't had a lot more planning as we're not as advanced in our planning. But we had a staffer who actually sat, and that was part of her job, to actually keep up with what's happening on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, all that stuff, and the web, to keep us up to date with what people were saying and what we need to respond to. Mm-hmm. Even negative ones, you know, we get back to them.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. We thank people all the time for their comments. Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's definitely a challenge to make sure that people are engaging in a meaningful way on social media.
Sure.
But I think I just echo everything Chase just said.
Yeah.
Sure, you're being responsive.
Getting back into some of the technical aspects of digital programs, have you been requesting RSVPs or registration of any kind, either for your live or your virtual programs? What formats do you like? What information are you gathering? That sort of thing.
Well, I don't have any yet, so that's definitely Izzy.
Oh, okay.
We've been doing that exclusively. Like, we're not doing programs where we just post a link online and anyone can pop in, just for security and safety reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it would be less of a concern if it were a webinar, because people's video can't be on, but we've all read about Zoom bombing, which is a real concern. Mm-hmm. So what we've been doing is having people register on Zoom. You can create a registration link that people can go to directly and put in their email, and then they'll get sent a link. For events that we're requiring or that we're asking for the pay what you can, we do that on our website, where we can collect the money, and then we have their email address, and we use that to generate a unique link to then email to that person to participate in the program. So we're not collecting any information that we wouldn't have otherwise collected for a live program. We require registration for most of our programs just because we have limited space. So we like to keep tabs on how many people are registering for things. And so nothing has really changed for us there. You do occasionally get the person who doesn't want to put their email information in, but that's a challenge, because with digital programs, there's a certain, baseline amount of information that you need to be able to generate those links for people. How
have you handled that when you get those?
I guess that would be a good question for the Princeton Public Library.
Okay.
That has happened with some of our library programs, and so they might have had more experiences with that than we have. We haven't gotten communications about that directly for our programs. And I think as time goes on and as people do more of these, they become more comfortable with sharing that information. I suppose that if someone, was not interested in putting their information online, we could generate a link for, I guess, one of our own email addresses and send that. I wonder if that would work. I'm just trying to troubleshoot.
Right. A dummy email address of some
Yeah.
sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Well,
But
couldn't
at
you
some
all,
point they need the link.
Yeah, you have to be able to send the link to them somehow.
Well-
That's what's different about this, is that it's a lot harder for someone to just show up at a program and for you to know nothing about them or where they came from. And in some ways I think that's helpful, but in some ways it makes some people uncomfortable, and that's absolutely fair. But yeah, in this world, there is a certain level of information you need about someone in order to give them access.
do you think it would help if you put in right up front when you're asking for it, that like you see sometimes we will not be using your email for whatever, any other thing without your permission or whatever? I
We
mean,
have
that's-
a privacy policy on our
Yeah.
website that outlines how we use people's email addresses, and we don't distribute them.
Yeah.
And check a box when they register for something on our site that says they're agreeing to those terms. So, but even so, there are some people who just
Yeah,
prefer
true.
not to give out
Yeah.
their email addresses, and I get that.
Yeah, we have that when people buy tickets from us on our general ticketing, but we haven't done anything yet with digital programming yet.
Related to digital ticketing, and if you want to talk about this as you're doing it right now or as you're thinking about it, Chase, there was a question about if there are fees associated with online payments, does your organization absorb the fee, or do you pass that along or split the difference, offer an option?
I know when we do our ticketing, there is a surcharge, but we do pass it along to the customer. But I don't know how we would do it with that's just general ticketing. It is.
Right.
But, we have to see what we're doing, because it's going to be, because if we're doing it as a donation, like how
Right.
Izzy does it, we'll have to research and see how we're going to do that. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Izzy, have you come up with this at all? With a
We
fee, or you don't have one?
transitioned a few years ago to embed all of our credit card processing on our own website. So
Oh.
we don't use PayPal or Eventbrite or anything like that. So so that we're in control of the surcharge and we absorb
Wow.
the credit card fee.
I'd like
So
to
got
talk to
it.
you about that.
The price that it says is the price that it is. So if it's a $5 program, you're charged $5.
$5.
Okay.
Excellent. So Izzy, you talked about your Lego program where people were working at home and, doing something at home and then posting photos. It seems like, Chase, that might be something that would be potentially part of your, having a sort of like a home component, maybe part of your Oyster program moving forward. Do you find that you're getting good engagement, or how you're going to start thinking about that engagement? If you're asking people to do things at home and then, share photos or share results back with you, how you're thinking about that or how that has played out.
You're asking me, right? You're asking Chase?
I'm asking both of you, actually, because I know
okay.
Izzy's done it already,
Okay.
and I know you're thinking about doing it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, I know that the crowd that we draw right now, the current ones, I'm sure they'd be glad to take photographs of them, eating and drinking, or trying to open up an oyster themselves and all that. That'll be fun. I mean, so you saw the cute one with the guy slurping the oyster. I'm sure we can get some good photographs we can ask them to share with us.
Great.
And we can have that for, yeah.
And Izzy, you mentioned in your Lego program that you had pretty good engagement through that, as I recall.
Yeah, I think my colleague Eve is on the call and she probably has the exact numbers. There definitely was a little bit of attrition of the people that registered to participate and then the photos that we got back, but it was a pretty good return. I think we got more than 10 sites back, which was kind of our goal. So I would say that, when we take registrations for a live event, we always take more registrations than we have capacity for, because we assume that something's going to come up, someone's not going to show. And I would do the same thing if you have a goal for how many how much content you want back. Register maybe 150% of that, because people will not. Sometimes people won't do it. But we were pretty pleased with the what we got back with the Lego program, because I think the people that registered were already eager to participate in it. We've had less success with just sort of kind of open call on social media. I think it's much better if you get, that one-to-one interaction by email with someone about what the program is. They've registered. You know, it's a lot harder to just say, hey, you know, here's a historic image, like recreate it and post a photo. And I think it's hard, that's like a little bit too open-ended maybe to get as much content as you want back. But if there are parameters and deadlines, then people will be a little bit better about it.
Right. So I am very sorry.
12 out of 18, sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt, Gigi. We got 12 out of 18 participated, actually got back to us with images for the Lego program.
That's pretty good. That's excellent. So I'm really sorry to report that we actually only have about 3 minutes. I am left. So I am seeing a number of questions that are about very technical questions about utilizing specific platforms, like for virtual school trips, for creating pre-recorded programs, video editing software. Rather than answering these right now, we are going to be sending stuff out to all excuse me, registrants of this program. And we will be sure to put links to our recommendations from our wonderful speakers or from others into that document so that we can get that information out to you as much as possible. I do have a list here, so I'm sorry we can't answer those right this second, but we will be getting back to you about that. And actually at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to my lovely compatriot, Madeline, in just one moment. Before I do that, Izzy and Chase, any last words to share in the last, 30 seconds, 1 minute? You've given us so much already. It seems rude of me to ask.
No, it's okay. I would say just give it your best shot and have fun with it, as well as, doing your job.
I just think what I've been telling myself is there's really no way to fail right now. Like, don't be afraid of failure. Like, as far as the evaluation question, there aren't even necessarily measures to compare yourself against.
No, right.
As far as how success is even defined. This is just a whole new world. So like, create your own definition of your success and shoot for that, and don't be worried about failure. All of us are kind of flying by the seat of our pants.
Yep. Give it your best shot.
Yep.
Great. Madeline, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap us up. Thank you so much, Izzy and Chase, for your thoughts and sharing all of the things that you're learning in the process of learning with us at this time. We really appreciate it.
You're
Madeline?
welcome.
Great, thank you, Gigi, and another huge thank you to Izzy and Chase and to everyone who took the time to attend today. So for our last slide, I think we just wanted to remind you that we'd like you to stay in touch with us. Thank you. So we've got our 2 websites, the Council for the Humanities is first, and then the Commission's website below. If you visit them, you can get to our social media channels. So if you're interested in what we're up to, or if you want to just keep this conversation going, we'd love to hear from you. And the other quick point I just wanted to make is that this is the second in a 3 webinar series. So we have 1 more coming up. You can see the title and date of it tomorrow. And I believe it's from the same, it's time, 10:30 to noon. So it's on July 23rd, 2020. Long-term strategies for resilience, considering revenues, costs, and business models. And I can share that 2 confirmed speakers are Kent Whitworth from the Minnesota Historical Society and Aaron Carlson Mast from President Lincoln's Cottage. So really excited about those. Other than that, I can just echo what Gigi said, that we're going to be working and putting together some sort of digestible document that will distill some of the key principles that Izzy and Chase so helpfully walked us through today, as well as some of the resources that were discussed in the chat, discussed live, and the questions we didn't get to, we'll do our best to get to them in that document. So I think that's everything. Gigi, anything else?
Nope, thank you so much, everybody. It's great to have you here. Please stay in touch and let us know if there are additional questions that you have that we can maybe create another webinar about in the future. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.